Today on Noise Party we have a very special presentation of the final Comedy on the Edge. Performers are Francis DiMenno, Greg Boggis, John Eder and Sarah Lay, Phil Berliner, Al Wigder, Amy Sohn, and The Wrong Hero.
A year and a half? This is the least I've seen here.
Ladies and gentlemen, gentleman if we don't count the performer. Dead air, dead air, dead air, dead air, dead air, dead air, dead air. More dead air. Get along, little doggy. You know that Wyoming will be on your own. No, it's not. That wasn't a good thing to do. Uh-oh. Oh, well.
Got it now.
Yep, sure have. Well, it's either the cord or the mic that I screwed up. That's easy to fix. Just switch them around. With one operational mic and no stand. Hey, all right. No mic stand. No. It's the adventures of no mic stand. Sounds like, I don't know. Sounds like a Chinese protest. No mic stand! No mic stand! Tiananmen Square. The late Michael O'Donoghue once said, "It's easy to make them laugh. What's really difficult is to make them think." Now, I'm not sure who this them was that he was referring to. I think perhaps it was the amorphous mass of individuals that he, as an entertainer, was called upon to. What does an entertainer do anyway? Entertain, I guess. Then that's why, Greg, as we were discussing earlier, it's so difficult to get people to laugh at the cerebral stuff. They're not at a comedy show to really, ponder the deep mysteries of life. More like the shallow mysteries of life. Yeah, so like, I tried to park in a parking space and there was a trash can there and I moved it and somebody put the trash can on top of my car and now I'm really mad. I'm telling you, when I catch that son bitch, I'm gonna. Yeah, they wouldn't. It's a good thing it doesn't snow down south because they wouldn't stand for that shit down there. I'm telling you, man. They'd be out with those rifles, you know. The next sound you would hear after you pulled a stunt like that would be, "What are you doing on my property?" So, it's just a very good thing because Southerners are like they're the nicest people in the world in many respects. They're very hospitable and for a good reason. The same reason that Arabs are hospitable is because if you've taken the trouble to wander down to their shithole, then they might as well treat you nice because they don't get many visitors down there, So, but when you get them mad, that's when you gotta watch out. There's an old saying, beware the anger of a patient man. And it's just so true. Because like when Southerners get mad, all of a sudden it's sort of like they lose about 3 inches. Their thoraxes start bunching up. And they start squeezing out their words like they're going to take a shit. What do you do? Boy, I'm going. When I get this thing out of here, I'm going to get you. Yeah, that's what the whole deliverance thing is all about, The stranger played banjo with the retard, and he played better. We're going to get him. That kind of thing. It's like there is a real consensus mentality down south, and it may have something to do with the fact that, well, they don't like to talk about this much, but there's a lot of, ex-prisoners that settled down south. Georgia was a penal colony like Australia, and I think prisoners they're not known for having long fuses. They're known for having pretty short fuses, It's like, the porridge is burned. So like, riot, riot, riot. Because, when you're stuck in some grim old shithole, the smallest thing can set you off. And so I don't know, that might have something to do with it. Also, there used to be slaves down there, and I guess that's why people like Strom Thurmond and Jesse Helms have a lifetime worth of congressional experience, because not only do they have their workers for life, but they have their congressmen for life too. So they were having to constantly be on their guard. Everything was happy, smiley on the surface, but then, sort of like keep one eye open when you're asleep, because you never know when them slaves might decide to kill you. And man, I'll tell you, I don't know what the hell I'm talking about the South for, except maybe it's because I kind of wish I was there right now. That would be really nice, because then I could just say something like, what about that football? Get a laugh that way, easy laugh. The Republicans are they're talking about abolishing the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms. If they do that, what are Southerners going to do in their spare time? That's all it is down there is alcohol, tobacco, and firearms. This is an example of the cerebral stuff that doesn't get the laugh. You know what I'm saying? And comics get on their high horse about it too. They say, well, these people, obviously, their minds are in the gutter. It's difficult to entertain them with my incredibly advanced thinking. And it's like, hey, lighten up, buddy, I mean, they could read they could read Tekin or the New Republic if they wanted that shit. But all they want, they just want you to relate to them. They get enough preaching from their boss and their wives and stuff. They don't need that. They just need someone to get down and friendly with. And it's like, yeah, my old hound dog. One time we had a stranger down here. My old hound dog was licking his balls, and the stranger said, gee, I wish I could do that. And I said to the stranger, get to know him first. See, that's the kind of stuff they like. And you can't blame them, really. I mean, yeah, Michael O'Donoghue, poor guy. I mean, I never much paid attention to his career when he was actually going, but now that he's dead, I can quote him like he's an old pal of mine. And he said something like, he really resented the fact that in Western tradition and in Greek drama they had that mask, comedy and tragedy, comedy on one side, tragedy on the other. And he said something like, what that fails to point out is that there is absolutely no fucking difference between the two of them. And Mark Twain sort of hit the nail on the head when he said that the hidden source of comedy is tragedy. So it's, I don't know, it's pretty tough. It's difficult to come to any definition of what comedy is. Some people say that comedy is the unexpected. Some people say that comedy is when your favorite comic comes in and brings two people. And some people say that comedy is truth. This is my father-in-law-to-be. We got into a discussion about comedy, and he says, well, I think what comedy really is the difference between the truth and not telling the truth. The truth and what's false. Well, that's not a bad definition, because everybody knows that this is just an act. I'm not really like this in my everyday identity. Hi, how are you? Hey, good to see you. Good to see you. Hey, way to go, Poland Spring. All right, hey, I used to think that was Poison Spring when I was about 5 years old, and polar water was poison water, and the nun would send me over to get some polar water because I told her I was thirsty. She's trying to poison me. And I thought the choir was actually chore, and I thought, I'm not going up there, I ain't going to do no chores. That kind of thing. It's funny. And in fact, Jonathan here was saying that a lot of the best ideas come from sort of this willful dyslexia that you get. Like you read something and you think it's one thing when it's actually another. Like there was this record label, I'm not incredibly sure of what the original name was. It's something like, I don't know, Cypress Mountain, but I misread it as Crime Mountain. What a concept! Crime Mountain. I'm going down to go to Crime Mountain. I'm going to commit crimes all day and night. I'm just inarticulate with absolute delight over my own cleverness, and it's you can just explore this thing forever and ever. Crime Mountain. Where it would be against the law to do anything that wasn't a crime, which is kind of weird when you think, paradoxical, you might say, because if nothing's a crime, then then everything's a crime, I guess. And so, I mean, how could you not commit a crime when it was your duty to commit a crime? If you were a criminal and you were in an environment where it was against the law not to commit crimes, you'd become a model citizen if you were any respectable kind of criminal. Because, you know, the whole criminal mentality is to subvert the law, get around the law, bend the law, to shape the law to your own advantage. Sort of like the Republicans, actually. But so just imagine a world in which it's against the law not to commit crimes, and you go, you're driving 55 in a 185 mile an hour school zone, and you weren't even going in reverse. It's like you're not under arrest. Yeah. That's just it. If it were against the law not to commit crimes, then not getting arrested would be the biggest crime of all. It'd be like, how much jail time have you had? 25 years. All right. How much jail time have you had? 15 years. All right. How much jail time have you had? 3 days. Oh, and what did you get it for? Something real bad, I hope. I stole 10,000 pounds of beef assholes. Yeah, it's like, whoa! Library books would be routinely returned 15 years late. There would be no "do not remove this" tag on mattresses, and all the other sort of like obvious things that immediately surface for this concept. Wow, I'm improvising like mad. In fact, in this crime mountain scenario, comedians would be penalized for making people laugh. And it would be really mad, you know. It would be mad, bad, and dangerous to know up on Crime Mountain. Gee, but who could we get to be the headliner at the Crime Mountain Comedy Club? I mean, who's the unfunniest famous comedian you know besides me? Bill Cosby? It's like, well, oh, come on, give Bill Cosby a break. If it weren't for Bill Cosby, where would Richard Pryor be? Well, where is he now? I mean, Christ, poor guy. Shit. Gilbert Gottfried is kind of grating, you know, but kids like him. I read something really great in Zippy today. Zippy's trying to be normal, and he's talking to some guy about the Family Circus, that adorable cartoon. And the black guy doesn't get the point of the Family Circus. He says, "What planet are these people from?" And Zippy says, "Be quiet, you fool! In France, Jeffy is worshipped as a god." And you know, the thing is, on Crime Mountain, the Family Circus would be at the top of every single, comic section. Just once in the Family Circus, I would like to see the following: "Mama, Grandpa's ghost told me to throw Jesus down the toilet." The anti-Family Circus, you know, it'd be sort of like, I don't know what it would be. The Manson Family Circus, you know. Jeffy, "Acid is groovy." Dolly, "Kill the pigs." Barfy, "Woof." You know, every once in a while you get these outstanding opportunities and you kick yourself because you don't take advantage of them. For me, it's like books, really. I've been selling off my library, so I've been very reluctant to acquire any more books. The best short stories of Ring Lardner, $1. You idiot! You idiot! Why didn't you buy that? Ring Lardner, a god, you know. But the one that really gets my goat, the one if I had only spent $5, I could have had a compilation of the earliest Family Circus comic strips, and I didn't buy it. What an idiot! Oh! I used to do yoga, so I can't kick myself. There are other things I can do, but they're not mentionable in a family context. That's more for the Taoist crowd. You know, Chairman Mao was a Taoist. He was sort of like Chairman Tao. You know, and if he had been alive to establish the Chinese stock market, you think it would have been called the Mao Jones Industrials? Maybe. Who knows? But I guess he read somewhere in the Tao Te Ching or one of those commentaries that if you make love to 10,000 virgins, you will be immortal. Hey, man, that is a great agenda for a world leader to have. I'm sorry to shock you, but it's true. It's true. Well, first of all, in this country, where would you find 10,000 virgins? But in China, it might be a little easier. You know, 1 billion people, 10,000.
Number one?
Number one? Oh, no, you're not a virgin.
You'd be surprised.
Oh, jeez. Well, that's okay. You know, purity of essence. You got to keep that. You got to save yourself. I'm saving myself. Well, nobody wants you, so it's kind of an exercise in futility now, isn't it? No, not you, Phil. Not you. Not you. I'm not talking about you. I'm talking about these damn teenage kids. Yeah, they're always saying, take out the trash. No, I'm saving myself. Oh, God, save yourself. So, someone's going to have to save you from me. Yeah, so 10,000 virgins, 1 billion people. How does that shape up anyway? 100 million to 1,000, 100 to 10 million, 10 to 1 million. So if one out of every 10,000 Chinese people is a virgin, or 100,000 Chinese people is a virgin, and I guess Chairman Mao could do it. But, geez, what an agenda for the guy to have. He probably went to every province looking for virgins. Virgins, virgins, bring out your virgins! It's sort of like, just pile them on the wagon there. I'll come to see them later. Well, in China, he could have had his pick, I don't like this virgin, This is the nice one. She has black hair, and the other one has no hair. So I'm going to go with the one with the black hair. Actually, Chairman Mao was kind of omnisexual. He used to squeeze his masseuse's bums. And this is all coming out now. His doctor of 22 years came out with an expose of the sex life of Chairman Mao. Yeah, wow. Just what the world was waiting for, man. I've been waiting with bated breath. I've been on my haunches waiting for this one. Yes, sir. Oh, the old chairman. I love that hat. Love the red star, dude. Hey, all right. Having the dinner, Hey, fella, don't you ever brush your teeth? Oh, you don't have any teeth. Oh, they all fell out. Oh, I see. Your gums are green. Cool, man. I want you to meet the Surgeon General, and I think I've said enough. I think perhaps I've even said too much. As a matter of fact, I've said so much that I don't have to say anything at all for the rest of the show if I choose not to. But, if only instead of watching Popeye cartoons, I had watched Bartleby cartoons. Bartleby, the Scrivener, Herman Melville. That was his big motto. Oh, never heard of it. Melville, American, déclassé. I only read British authors like Anthony Hope, the author of The Prisoner of Zenda. Has anybody actually read this thing, The Prisoner of Zenda? You look like you might have read it. No? Oh, being coy. Here's The Prisoner of Zenda. Hey, I look just like the king of Ruritania. Hey, they kidnapped the king. I'll take his place. I love his princess to be. What am I going to do? I could let the king die because he's hostage, or I can make love to his princess and pass as the king. I know, I'll get into a sword fight. First I'll jump into a smelly old moat, then I'll get into a big sword fight with the black king, and then I'll kill him, or someone else will, and then I'll tell the princess goodbye. Here's your king, folks. See you later. I'm going back to England. And every year I'll send the princess one perfect red rose. The end. So now you can save yourself the 15 hours it would take to slog through The Prisoner of Zenda, because now you know what it's about. So before I go, any other classics regurgitated? This is a format that I've been working on and would like to establish in some sort of continual fashion. And so, come on, a classic of Western literature. Anything at all.
Stephen King's Insomnia.
That's not a classic. 10 million chimps were put to work writing Shakespeare, and they came up with Stephen King, Sorry. Has to be
Jungle.
Oh, you're such a great guy. I love The Jungle. It's one of my favorite books. It's going to come out in a Disney feature, the Jungle Book movie, and it would be, Disney doing The Jungle now. There's a high concept for you. It's like, my name is Jorgis. I'm Jorgis Rodkis. I am an illiterate Lithuanian peasant. I've come to Chicago, work in the stockyards. I might even be able to buy my own home. Forget the home, forget the wife. My little boy was eaten up by rats. There's more. Gonna leave this jungle, become a hobo. Forget I ever had those stinking brats. Back to Chicago, I'm now a socialist. Chicago will be ours, Chicago will be ours, Chicago will be ours. That's just the opening song. I mean, the cartoon stuff, that comes later. Hi, my name's Teddy Roosevelt. I heartily endorse The Jungle by Upton Sinclair and Walt Disney. Hi, I'm Upton Sinclair. I went for their minds, and instead I got their stomachs, but I don't care. So anyway, I'm on such a high now, I think this is the best time for me to bring up our first guest, Mr. Greg Boggis. Greg Boggis, come on up here.
Greg Dalton. Hi, my name is Greg Boggis, and I've always considered myself somewhat of a pud. And for those of you who don't know what a pud is, it's somebody who's not really a bad guy, but not really a nice guy, not really memorable, and not really forgettable. And I'm the kind of person that I only visit my friends and family when I have to go to the bathroom. I deal drugs, but I don't do it for money, I do it for the company. And I've had a difficult time growing up with the name of Boggis. Banks won't cash my checks. People ask me if I'm for real. And I had an interesting holiday. The Boggis family holiday is always an interesting experience. My mother made the usual pecan pie, forgot to take the shells off. My brother burnt his penis trying to stuff the turkey after he got drunk. And that was my particularly favorite aspect of the holidays. The elections, Francis and I were just talking about the elections and whatnot, and I'm from New Hampshire, and New Hampshire's now, once again, they've taken the pie as the most conservative state in the nation, so I've obviously had to have had a sense of humor being someone who considers himself liberal in a family of liberals. In New Hampshire, I think we're probably the only liberal family in New Hampshire. I think there's an actual congressional district for the Boggis family. And I've lived in Massachusetts now. I've lived in Somerville for about 3 months now, and I've been comparing and contrasting the two states, and I've found some big differences. In Massachusetts, if you leave your car parked on the side of the road for too long, you'll get a ticket on your windshield. In New Hampshire, if you leave your car parked on the side of the road, a hunter will strap a deer to your hood. If you need to warm up your Boston baked beans down here in Massachusetts, you can warm them over the grate of a sewer. In New Hampshire, if you want to boil lobsters, you can just throw them in the waters off the coast of Seabrook. And I've always thought that was an interesting thing, that they'd put a nuclear power plant on the scanty 15 miles of seacoast that New Hampshire has. From Maine and Massachusetts have these vast expanses of seacoast, and New Hampshire got skinched out with just this little chunk. And of course, it's polluted by Hampton Beach, which is a mecca of white trash. It's an incredible place. And years ago, New Hampshire had, if anybody may remember, Governor Meldrum Thompson. He was about the most radically right person I've ever seen. He wanted tactical nuclear weapons for the New Hampshire National Guard. And that's the truth. He had a guy pulled over one time. He was going down the highway, and there was a guy who had put some tape over the live free or die. The guy didn't like that part of his license plate. He put some masking tape or some duct tape over that. And Meldrum Thompson had his chauffeur radio the police, and the police pulled the guy over and arrested him for defacing public property, and that's a true thing. So it's been a big experience growing up in a very, very, very conservative state, and it's nice to be in a state where there's a little bit more of a diverse group of people. You see a lot more people of different colors and creeds and religions and all that. In New Hampshire, ethnic diversity is a town with a Chinese restaurant and a lot of lawn jockeys, and that's the amount of ethnic diversity that we have in New Hampshire. I'm a chain smoker, and I've been recently thinking about quitting because it's kind of getting me down. It's a very bad habit. It's expensive. Cigarettes, I guess the one plus in New Hampshire is that cigarettes are cheaper up there, and which isn't too bad. And I smoke an awful lot. I smoke so much when I go into a restaurant, the waitress will ask me, do you want smoking or non-smoking? I say chain. I enjoy my teeth the color of Gould's mustard because it enhances the coffee stains and the gristle. And I was going to quit a couple of weeks ago, but I realized that I only need 200 more Marlboro miles and I can get the deluxe iron lung. And it's been a bad day for me. I woke up kind of depressed this morning, so I called the suicide hotline and they put me on hold. And then I rang through to Dr. Kevorkian's extension. And I can do I do one good impression, and that's with the help of a receding hairline, and it's a peninsula. If you can check that out, that's my one visual, my one show and tell piece here. I had a friend who I used to hang out with in high school, and he said, you know, I used to think my hairline was receding, but then I realized it was thigh chafe, and I always liked that. I always liked that line. But in closing, I'd like to thank everybody for being here, and I'd like to thank myself for having the testicular fortitude to get up on stage once again. And with that, I'll turn it back over to Francis, who's engaging in my favorite pastime, smoking.
No, I will not smoke on camera. That was Greg Boggis. Greg Boggis. Let's give him, come on, more. Greg Boggis. Greg, more. Come on, no, Greg Boggis, more. All right. Francis DiMenno. More. Lots more. Big, over, standing O. No. Stop that clapping, I got a headache. Well, it's funny, but when a comedian gets up there and he really does a good set, then the MC is totally intimidated. I will not smoke on stage because I don't want to influence America's children, you know. So America's adults, that's another thing. They're always talking about impressionable children. We must be careful not to do anything that would influence impressionable children. I think the real problem in this country is the impressionable adults. They're the ones that vote and stuff like that, and maybe they're the ones we should start worrying about a little bit, like death penalty, Republican. I'm going to vote Republican. You know, get those welfare chiselers off of food stamps. What? Half of them are children? Hell with them. Children don't eat much. Here, we'll teach them to smoke. That'll cut their appetite. All right. You know, fewer food stamps, more. Oh, feud stamps. That's right. We're in West Virginia now. We're replacing our food stamps with feud stamps. Yeehaw, it's a feud. All right. You know, you can't use food stamps to buy bullets. That's against the Constitution. These are feud stamps. I'm going to buy 15 rounds of ammo with these. Yeah, all right. I was in Louisville, Kentucky. Don't ask me why. Well, actually, I'll tell you why. Because, and this is the historical part. It's not funny, but if you laugh, that's okay. Seems as though Western Pennsylvania, they grew a lot of corn and stuff, and it was pretty remote, and they couldn't get it to market, so they made whiskey, and the government wanted to tax it. This is the recap portion of the show, and they didn't want them to tax it, so they had the Whiskey Rebellion. That's great, man. If I'm ever in a rebellion, I want it to be called the Whiskey Rebellion, you know? It was like, all right. That would be their slogan. Well, what's your political platform of this rebellion? That would be so cool. I'd love to. But anyway, so all those folks that didn't like the idea that Washington came and put them down, they all moved to Kentucky. And they made real whiskey there. None of this Western Pennsylvania fancy Dan stuff. No, sir. Hogs fell over dead after sniffing the whiskey. Oh, my old setter fell over at 15 paces when he smelled that corn. You know, so like it gives a new meaning to corn, Kellogg's corn flakes in the morning. If I had my way, I'd start every day with Kellogg's corn. Yeah, I'll start every day with corn. So I was in Louisville, and that's where they have the world's biggest sanitarium to treat addicts, drug addicts. You know, I used to know this stuff right off the top. Lexington, I guess it's called. You know, it's where they had the best jazz band in the world. At Lexington Sanatorium. I was in Louisville, and I was in a music store, and I saw this really nice mandolin, and there was nobody there, and I thought, shoo-wee, this here is a $300 mandolin. But then the thought passed, because in Louisville, everybody is incredibly honest, and when in Rome, do as the Romans do. But it got me to thinking. They always talk about how hillbillies are illiterate, and you know, they like to feud. But they never talk about how honest they are. Those stupid, low-down, stinking, filthy, honest hillbillies. How can they be so stupid? Low-down, one-eyed, tobacco juice dribbling, honest hillbillies. I'll tell you. See, they ought to be on Crime Mountain. You know, do you do you not swear to tell lies, all lies, and nothing but lies? I do not so swear. So help me, Lucifer. So, I think I'm coming up with a song now. I got a gal up on Crime Mountain. That's all I got right now. She don't cook and she don't clean. She don't do nothing all day long. Just sits and stares at that 19-inch color television screen. We don't have kids. We don't pay taxes. We don't do a god darn thing at all. Life is sweet up on Crime Mountain. If only I had a place to put my horse in its stall. I know that's kind of lame, but you know it's improv. And what do you want? Improv is an excuse to be lame. Let's put it that way. Okay? Don't laugh, Greg. Someday you'll be up there, and someday all these comics here will be up there, and everything is like down the toilet, down the toilet, down the toilet. Think I'll do a little improv now. It's sort of like, you know, the hillbilly saying, think I'm going to shoot my neighbor now. Think I'm going to do a little improv. Instead of throwing these carefully crafted little time bombs into the audience, I'll just get a big steaming pile of time bombs and just chuck them in there willy-nilly, yeah. All right, I don't care who it is. It's going to hit everybody. Oh, improv. You know, it's tough to do improv because what do you talk about? Huh? I mean, if you talk about stuff that you've already thought of, it's not improv. It's more like working out your new material on stage before you've even had a chance to write it down, and that kind of blows, man. You know. But I'll try a little improv before I introduce our next guest. So give me something to improv off of, please. Just something totally random. Marshmallow. Ham.
Hair.
Ham.
Hair.
Oh, hair.
H-A-I-R.
I like ham better, you know. They call Thanksgiving Turkey Day. How come they don't call Easter Ham Day? I'm just wondering about this. But no, hair, huh? Hair. Duh. Hair today, gone tomorrow. Yeah. Oh man, I got to tell you about this. I saw this half-hour infomercial about Disney World. Can you imagine anything more hellish than to watch a clip over and over of the half-hour Disney World infomercial? Goofy, did you know, fascinating facts about Disney World, did you know that Goofy can crush a man's head with one blow of his fist, you know? Did you know that Disney employees live in subterranean tunnels and are totally disgruntled? They are, and they write all this sort of graffiti, you know, like, get that fucking rat out of my sight and things like that. You know, do they have a vermin problem at Disney? I wonder. You know, the sight of a giant 6-foot rat would be enough to scare any vermin within a 500-mile radius. Clean the hell out of there. But there's this infomercial, and the family, you know how they do with these infomercials is they show how it's fun for the whole family. Now you know if something is so mediocre as to be fun for the whole family, then any thinking person would never consider it fun of any kind whatsoever. There's something for everybody, from the littlest sprat up to the doddering-most grandfather. Hey, whiskey at Disney World. And so here's Dad's fantasy, to get up on stage and do comedy. And then we fade into a dissolve. He's up there. You know, there's about maybe 500 people, including Ed McMahon, chuckling off in the corner. And he tells the lamest jokes imaginable. You know, like something on the order of hair today, gone tomorrow. It's a chance of a lifetime. This is his big shot. And he gets up there and goes, you know, says stuff like, why do they call them hurricanes? Well, if they didn't, I guess they'd call them himicanes. Yeah, it's like Johnny Most. You know, I only do this for Boston crowds because Johnny Most is about, you know, he's really a Boston. He's a localized, New Hampshire too, localized phenomenon. North of here, you know, everybody knows who he is. South of here, forget it. Johnny Most, who the hell's that? I'll tell you who Johnny Most was, Pilgrim. The late Johnny Most was the Paganini of phlegm. He was the Jimi Hendrix of congestion, you know? And I gotta work up a little phlegm here. Luckily, I smoked a pack of Luckies before the show. Gotta work up a little phlegm to do my prize-winning Johnny Most on drugs impression. Johnny Most never used illegal drugs, and I don't want to make that implication. You know, he just smoked a carton of Luckies a day and drank a quart of whiskey every day of his life. Those aren't illegal drugs. But if you'd done the illegal ones, well, what would it be something like,
Hey, diddle, diddle, the cat, the fiddle, the cat, and the cow jumped over the moon. The cat fiddles and diddles down the court. Here comes Humpty Dumpty. He's sitting on the wall. Humpty Dumpty had a great fall. Humpty Dumpty had a great fall. Oh, this is terrible. Here comes Havlicek. Havlicek fiddles and diddles down the court. Oh, this is terrible. Havlicek can't put Humpty Dumpty back together again. Here comes Caesar. 7 hills of Rome were burning. Here comes Caesar. Here comes Nero. Nero, he fiddles and diddles down the court. The 7 hills of Rome are burning. They're burning. This is terrible.
Whoa! Give us more, Johnny.
A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, K.
It works for me.
all right.
You know, there are many people who say they're Christians and they live like Christians on the Sabbath day. But from Monday morning to the Friday evening, they just hate their neighbors all along the way. Oh, this is terrible. And you don't love God if you don't love your neighbor. Here comes Havlicek. Havlicek steals the ball. Havlicek steals the ball. He doesn't love his neighbor. He doesn't love his neighbor. Here comes Frankenstein. Frankenstein steals the ball from Lucifer. Oh, Lucifer's the devil. Oh, the devil you say. Oh, 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 oh.
The other reason I only do this in Boston is I live right next door and I can sleep for about 8 hours afterwards. But no time to sleep. Come on, cheer up, crybabies. Because it's time to bring up our next guest, Mr. Jonathan Eder.
Yeah!
Little sketch comedy. Where's your drawing pad?
I have nothing to live for. My every thought nauseates.
Hi. Are you Jill?
The very sound of my name reminds me of unfulfilled promises. Goodbye, cruel world.
Wait a moment. I'm Jim. I answered your ad in last week's Phoenix Person session. But you didn't specify which downtown bridge you'd be at. I'm sorry I'm late, but I'm glad I made it on time.
Go away. I don't want any witnesses. Save the emptiness of a godless universe.
Wait! I have to meet you. I've been thinking about you ever since I read your personal ad. Young, single woman, thinks life sucks. Green eyes, uninterested in almost everything.
You're not one of those good Samaritan types, are you? As if you are.
I have been thinking about you, someone like you, and looking for someone like you for years now. But I've always hesitated. I've always gotten there too late. I've always had to mourn for the girl I just missed getting to know. Once by only a few seconds. Now I want to mourn with someone I know.
My only company is an aquarium filled with bumblebee tuna fish cans floating in the bottom of it.
I could really be unhappy in a place like that.
I eat only to vomit.
Just to stare into your dead, desolate eyes would be meaningless enough for me. I could tell you incredibly depressing stories.
Please, if this has any chance of working, We shouldn't communicate too much.
Perhaps I could speak to you in a different language.
Yes. Preferably a dead one.
6 months later.
Did you know, darling, that when I was growing up, I was so poor.
Oh, really, my sweet? How poor were you?
I was so poor that my household job was to bring in the trash.
Oh, my precious. Do you know that when I was growing up, my family was so poor.
Oh, my pet, how poor were you?
My family, when I was growing up, was so poor that we had to stay home on trash day just to make sure they wouldn't take the house. Oh, sweet.
Oh, did you know, darling, that when I was growing up, I was so poor.
Oh, darling, how poor were
I
you?
was so poor that the only time I could stretch out at night in bed was when my parents were making love.
Oh, precious. Do you know that when I was growing up, I was so poor?
How poor were you?
When I was growing up, I was so poor that the only time I could have seconds was when I threw up.
Oh, darling, did you know that when I was growing up, I was so poor?
Oh, really, darling? Just how poor were you?
I was so poor that to be in the doghouse meant that I had shelter for the night.
Oh. You know, when I was growing up, we kids were so poor.
How poor?
Oh, we were so poor that whenever our teeth fell out, we had to give them to our grandparents. Oh, what do you get when you cross the deceased actor James Dean and a pig?
What do you get when you cross a disease? James Dean and a pig.
But what you get when you cross the deceased actor James Dean and a pig is an angry young spam. Listen, honey. What do you think you get when you cross Kurt Cobain and a French cheese?
I don't know. What do you get when you cross Kurt Cobain and a French cheese?
What you get, honey, when you cross Kurt Cobain and a French cheese is a man who cannot bear it anymore.
Ah! What do you get when you cross Julia Child with the Joan of Arc?
I don't know. What do you get when you cross Julia Child and Joan of Arc?
You get a woman who can really cook a steak. Ah!
What do you think you get when you cross a dirty old man and a trip to the Orient?
What do you get when you cross a dirty old man and his trip to the Orient? It's a flash in Japan.
Jonathan Eder and
Sarah Leigh.
Sarah Leigh, Leigh.
L.A.
L-A-Y. That's the question I ask every time I go to California. L-A, why? No water. It belongs to Mexico. Why? 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 You want to get up? Yeah, you want to get up? You. Well, forget it. You came too late. I don't like you anymore. You're not my friend. Yes, well, a very unexpected pleasure and a most unexpected treat, and all those other incomprehensible adjectives that we spew out like gobbledygook or speed freaks. The magnificent, the maleficent, the extraordinary, the uncommon, the magnificent. Did I already say that? Yes, I did. Incipient Alzheimer's. Mr. Phil Berliner.
Thank you, Francis. I love myself unconditionally. Unfortunately, it's unrequited. Thank you. Good night.
And now, the end is near, and so we face the final curtain. You can't, I'm not a queer, of that I'm certain.
I did it my way.
That was my prize-winning impression of Sid Vicious. And as good a way as any to end this segment of Comedy on the Edge.
How about Johnny Most singing Frank?
Oh God, how about Dean Martin doing Johnny Most? Havlicek steals the ball. That little old wine drinker, Havlicek. This is incredible. Havlicek steals the ball. I love Havlicek. I love y'all. But most of all, I love Havlicek because he stole the ball. I love Havlicek. Can't get enough of that Havlicek. Can't get enough of that Havlicek because Havlicek stole the ball. Hey, it wasn't a fancy dress ball. It wasn't even a baseball. It was a good old basketball, and Havlicek stole the ball. Hey, Havlicek stole the ball. Whew. Well, yes, okay, how's about Johnny Most singing Do Not Forsake Me, Oh My Darling?
Do not forsake me, oh my darling, on this wedding day. If you forsake me, oh my darling, I'll be a coward. Oh, a coward, a coward. I can't bear to be a coward. I'll be a coward in my grave.
Don't go away. The tall one is in 8. And we are ready.
Hang on. You got it plugged in all the way? That's what you're under the cord?
To roll.
Okay, don't.
They
Okay.
gotta be your computer.
Take that out, put it in channel 9.
Yes.
Go back to the.
Sir.
Well, that channel's not coming up on anything there.
Channel 9. Number 9.
There you go.
You know what number 9 is?
Oh, that's, you need more treble.
Hang on for me. Hang on.
Number 9 is, this sounds like 1979 here. So, this is like Death of a Comedian. Woof. The perfect sound. Number 9 backwards is Let Me On, Young Man. It's not Turn Me On, Dead Man. It's Let Me On, Young Man. I had one of those AR turntables in high school. I used to play Revolution 9 backwards. It did sound an awful lot like an automobile accident backwards, and again, it sounded like one forwards too. Yes, da 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 da. You know, if we had cymbals in our heads when we were performing, we could just like smack the side of our head and get the rim shot. Would that be cool? Or even a steel plate would do. Da 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 da. You know, well, I notice that people on Ricky Lake who aren't professional speakers say, you know, a lot. In fact, Ricky Lake herself says, you know, a lot.
I do know.
And my father used to say, don't say you know, it's a given. Like, thanks, Dad, for the wonderful advice. Thanks, Dale Carnegie. Now I can win friends and influence people. I wonder if the other mic's going to be any better.
Well, wait a minute. Copy the other one.
Now you know how Sid Vicious got his start. I don't know, Mike. This,
Francis, that's my idea. I know there's something wrong. I'm trying to take care of it.
I don't mind it per se. It makes me sound
My other
like...
option is to turn it off and forget about it and deal with it on Monday. What do you want me to do?
Michael, please, I'm not trying to pressure you into doing anything that you're not comfortable with. Far from it.
Finding the sound is better when you're not right on top of the mic. You're back
Okay, like this?
a little closer.
A little closer.
Yeah, you hear amplification, but without that
Without that
bass
persistent
muffling.
muffled.
Muffling.
Okay. Well, welcome to Comedy on the Edge. This is part of my dream to have the show take place in the audience with nobody on stage. And nobody in the audience either, for that matter. Well, except one person who is worth 10 in my esteem,
Thank you.
if for no other reason. And I was thinking about the Billy Joel song, Piano Man. I was discussing it with the bartender. Hey, what's the bartender's name, Mike? Is that Tim?
I don't know who the bartender is.
The guy with the blonde hair.
That'd be Tim.
Oh, okay, good. I'm
In
glad.
the front
Yeah.
and Bob in the back.
Tim in the front, Bob in the back. Liquor in the front, poker in the rear. Yes, sir. Anyway, well, Tim's a nice guy. Really nice. I just want to say that right now while I still have the chance to be heard by the multitude.
What's that?
And we were discussing...
No, I'm not. Now you're getting the waitresses to harass me.
Great. Hey, turn that down, huh? What the fuck? Driving the customers out. Hell, you're driving the accumulation of vermin from 20 years out.
That's it.
You know?
You want to think.
I was thinking about the song Piano Man, and one of the lyrics which goes, play me a song, you're the piano man. It's like, start me a war, you're Hitler. What kind of way is that to talk to somebody? Come on, raise some dead, you're the Christ. Eat my shit, you're the garbage man. This is a little better. A little better.
Just keep talking.
Okay, it's closer to the natural tones of my voice.
This is better.
The plummy basses and the fruity trebles come out in their fullest flavor when the microphone has been so amply fixed and conditioned by our premier sound person, Mike Higgins.
It was good, just got muffled.
Got muffled it. Oh well. I can set ransom demands with this microphone now. Put the money in a brown paper bag if you ever want to see Santa Claus again. And yeah, Christmas Eve. Wow. There I go with again. Well, I was also pondering the difference between being, in your 20s and 30s and having a roommate and being in your 30s and 40s and either shacking up or being married to somebody. But there I go again, hit me every time I say I'll replace it with my new catchphrase, at least. At least. See, every comedian needs a catchphrase, a snappy little, thing that they're known for. I'm getting sidetracked, but that's okay. That's the whole purpose of Comedy on the Edge, actually. I was actually watching Geraldo. That's my girlfriend. It has nothing to do with me. I would never watch it if it weren't for her. But she had a big crush on him in the 70s. So she likes to watch him every now and then, just for nostalgia's sake. And there was this guy on there. They were discussing the OJ case, predictably enough. and they had all these slimy lawyers. One of them was fat, one of them was like kind of smaller but also fat. They looked like little cockroaches, really, like big, bulky guys with tiny heads. And one of them, of course, was saying, well, you know, of course, DNA evidence is highly unreliable, and for every one person who has been exonerated by DNA evidence, 100 have been thrown in jail. And the other guy was going, he was a forensic scientist, not a lawyer, but he looked just like a lawyer but bigger. And he was going, actually, that's absurd. You know, forensic science may not be in its most advanced stages, and perhaps 10 years down the road it will be more foolproof than it is now. But nonetheless, DNA evidence is virtually irrefutable, and there's only one chance in 10 million and all this stuff. And then they had this old drunk, or former drunken guy who had been thrown into jail for sexual molestation and then exonerated by DNA evidence. And he kept saying, talking over the lawyer who was trying to talk over him, all I know is, God bless DNA. If it weren't for DNA, I'd be serving 5 to 50. God bless DNA. Then he started crying because his mother was dead. Just wonderful. And I had to talk a little bit about my mother. We got a commercial break coming up. Please come right back. Tell me more about this after the break. And everything depends on after the break. You know, it'd be something like, I hold in my hand the anti-life equation. Well, that's very interesting, but we'll be right back with that after the break. I have the cure for all known human disease. Well, that's very interesting, but we'll come back right after the break. You know, like, I'm holding a gun at your head, and it's loaded, and I'm going to squeeze the trigger right now. Well, that's very interesting, but we'll come back right after the break. And Rush Limbaugh.
That seems better now, right?
Yes, that's much better. Much
Am I
closer.
interrupting your act?
I don't mind at this stage, Michael.
Really?
Because I am so, like, you know,
Frustrated?
light on my feet that I can
Angry?
I can just easily jump right back. Uh-oh, it's fading in and out.
No, I did that.
You did that.
I want to know
You're worse than
Sounds good for this end now.
Rush Limbaugh. He does the same thing. It's like, I could have created $36 million in tax revenue if it weren't for government restrictions and taxation on my salary, which doesn't make me able to build these gigantic shopping complexes in Westchester County. And he was making all these outlandish claims. I created 40 jobs in the service sector. These are good paying jobs. They pay $9, $10 an hour. Sure they do, pal. That's right. The boys with the white hat, the boys with the butterfly nets are here. Try on your nice new jacket with the arms that knit behind your back. But he was just ranting on and on about, the government restrictions. Well, these welfare chiselers,
I'm back!
if they made it as hard to get on welfare as they did to get a building permit, we wouldn't have any welfare. We'd have 15 million skyscrapers.
Actually, that sounds pretty reasonable to me. I'd run the government like that.
I know, you've been hurt by affirmative action policies.
I have?
Well, the place where you're living now, of course, they're constantly trying to throw you out because you don't fit their specifications.
I know, but now I'm legal.
But I actually heard Rush Limbaugh say, well, that's very good, but we'll get right back to you after the break. And then some 11-year-old kid called in. Hi, Rush. It's like, start him out young. Yes, my friend. And he's like, the kid doesn't know what he's talking about. He's saying, well, I think it's okay to have school prayer. I think it's okay to have school uniforms. And then Rush Limbaugh says, well, what if somebody didn't want to wear the uniform? And the kid says, well, I guess it would be up to the individual. And Rush says, well, what's the point of having uniforms if it's up to the individual as to whether they can wear the uniform or not? Sort of like, but
Exactly.
then he holds himself back from really laying into the kid. Because, after all, he's just an 11-year-old kid, right? Now, if he were 13, he'd be old enough to smoke pot and go out with girls, and then Rush would really lay into him because these are the things that the frustrated Rush can't really do with the kind of vigor that he once was able to. Oh, yeah, Rush Limbaugh.
I did sound for his nephew's band once.
What was his nephew's band called? Soviet Ingratitude?
The Bob Limbaugh Band.
Oh, no. Really? The John Wayne Bobbitt Band, the Tonya Harding Band, how about the Daddy's Money Band?
His band was pretty good.
Hey, yeah, they did Rock Around the Clock, and they had some funny lyrics about how, President Clinton snorted cocaine. Yeah, they were really cool.
They're actually an R&B, oldies type band, but did original material. And they made fun of the guy's uncle, and he looked like him too.
Oh, wow. with those 3 strikes, how could he possibly lose? You know, it's like Danny Bonaduce band, just anything.
Todd Bridges band.
That's right, the tattoo band. You know, the blood alcohol .40 band.
The Wrong Hero band.
The Wrong Hero. Yeah, right. Hero. But the thing about Rush Limbaugh, you know how the guy that ran Sun Records said, if I could find a white man that could sing like a colored man, I'd make $1 million. Well, somebody looked at Rush Limbaugh and said something like, if I could find a 40-year-old man who thought like a 70-year-old retiree from World War II, I could make $1 million. Because that's all Rush is, really. He's a young man with the thinking, the arteriosclerotic intellectual prowess of an old man. He was actually caught out. He didn't actually watch the news the night before he was on the air on the 23rd of December. So he didn't know about Pete Wilson saying that it might be nice to have school prayer in schools after all. He actually admitted to not knowing something. And then in the same breath, he started talking about Newt Gingrich and that $4 million book contract, totally ignoring the real issue, which is the guy who offered him this contract is somebody who is in trouble with the government, is basically bribing the House Speaker with a $4 million offer to get off his back. No, he said, well, Newt didn't call him. He called Newt. Like that makes it any different, you know? Newt didn't actively solicit this bribe. The person trying to bribe him solicited Newt, so it's okay, you know? Yeah, I know. Right, and he says that women have to wear skirts if they want to be on his television show in the audience. Yeah, they also have to be white, obese, and over 40 if they want to be in his audience.
Who do you know that's like that?
Gee, I'm getting there. You know, I'll be 38 in a week, and I put on 50.
Better now, isn't it, Francis?
Put on 50 pounds in the last year, but hey, that's what happens when you stop smoking dope and drinking. You know, it's just must put things in mouth. Must put. I got some Asti Spumante for my girlfriend last night. Actually, she paid for it, but that's okay because I bought the Christmas tree. We dickered the
Hey,
guy
you
down.
want to play a tape down? I want to see how it sounds with music.
No, not good.
Okay.
What kind of tape is it?
Just kidding.
If it's classical
Joke
music.
show.
Oh, a joke. Yeah, that's it. That's what I'll call my new show. It's a joke show. The joke show. Hey kids, let's put on a joke show. Let's have we'll do the jokes with puppets and it'll be a puppet theater type of thing. Now I bought a Christmas tree for my girlfriend. We dickered him down from $20 to 15. I felt like a louse, but since I was paying for it, hey, what the hell? Okay, here you go, 15 bucks. Sayonara, sucker. Because like 30 years ago, that same tree would have cost $35. I mean, it's amazing how great science is and how great economics is. Okay, so the minimum wage is the lowest in real dollars, and it's been since 1965. But at least butter is no longer $2.12 an ounce. Now it's only a pound. Now it's only like $1.15 a pound. So and there are some people who insist there's no such thing as progress. Anyway, I got my girlfriend a bottle of Asti Spumante at this place called Rocks. You know, it's a good working class liquor store, and you know it is because they've got 50 different types of domestic beers and 8 types of wine. And you can see where they put they jacked up the price of the champagne and the Asti Spumante for New Year's Eve. You know, they're not in business for their health. You know, like Corbel was $4.99, now $14.99. You know, act now because on New Year's Eve it's going to be $25.99. And on New Year's Day, it'll be $4.99. And this is a bit of advice for everybody. It's going to come far too late to do any practical good, but maybe you can remember it for next year. Better to buy the best Asti Spumante you can afford rather than the cheapest champagne. The best Asti Spumante is like incalculably better than the worst champagne. Now, I'm not a drinking man anymore, but I do like to see other folks have fun. So remember this.
Oh, buy me a bottle.
What is Asti Spumante?
Oh, it's a bubbly wine. It's rather sweet, a little sweeter than champagne, which is kind of dry.
Carbonated sweet white wine.
It's not artificially carbonated, is it?
Huh?
Is it?
How do they get them bubbles in the bottle? I don't know. Ask Don Ho.
Yeah, right. God, that reminds me.
Does it come in cookie dough?
Come in cookie dough flavor? No, it comes in cranberry cookie dough flavor for the New England crowd.
Yeah, you know, that New Englanders are so gullible. Just stick some cranberry shit in there and they'll buy it. It's just phenomenal. It's like, why, it's our regional fruit. What a world, what a world. And now to get to the main point, which is the idiocy of rock and roll clubs. No, I'm not going to get to that just yet, but I will shortly. What I want to get to is the difference between having a roommate and shacking up. It's like all the difference in the world, because you can live in utter squalor. You can have newspapers from the Lincoln assassination on the floor, and nobody will give a shit, because it's guys, and guys just don't care. Like, their idea of a decorating touch? A keg of beer next to the open trough where you piss, you know, in the bathroom. I mean, that's, wow, man, you got a really great setup there. You know, get your 20-inch color television in the kitchen so you can have it on at all times of the day and night while you're cooking. You know, while you're cooking, you can listen to David Letterman and whatnot. When you have arguments with your roommates, though, it's different from when you have arguments with your girlfriend, because your roommates will almost never threaten to throw you out, but your girlfriend will routinely do so. It's like, you know, every time you have this minor disagreement with her, well, why don't you just get out? You know, it's like, oh my God. You know, well, okay, dear, I'll go out and I'll come back in a couple of hours after you've cooled off and, you know, after you've had a chance to look at pictures of cute babies and get your blood pressure down. It's cool. It's really amazing about women because no matter how intellectual they are, unless like they're really raging Camille Paglias, you can always like just slip a picture of a baby in front of them and then all instantly, oh, baby. And you know, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how far down the phylogenetic scale you go. Puppy, little goldfish. It stops with insects, though, especially ones with exoskeletons, like cockroaches and beetles. They'll never fall for this. It's a cockroach! No, it's just a harmless beetle. No, they'll never fall for that. Whereas, you know, it's not really a man's apartment unless there's a couple of cockroaches around, you know?
Hey, what to do with the audience?
I don't know. I think they were taken by the rapture. Hal Lindsey, call your office.
You remember that?
I sure do. I read the book. Hal was there. Hey, you know. So it's just making the adjustment from having a roommate to shacking up with a dame is just like too much. It's a major source of nervous tension. You don't have to really hide anything from your roommate, really. You know, I was arrested for counterfeiting. Well, have a beer. But your girlfriend, on the other hand, well, my old girlfriend from college, who I really love instead of you, called me up on the phone and we went out to dinner. You can't tell her that. God, are you kidding? It'll take her 3 months just to...
In an honest, open relationship, you probably should.
You right? Well, okay, here's the thing. Will she ever find out? Yes? Tell her right away. No? Don't even mention it. Really? There's no sense in mentioning it if she'll never find out, so...
Well, you don't need to be devious if it's...
No, not devious.
Well,
Not devious, not devious. Just, you want to spare her unnecessary trauma. Especially if she's highly excitable
whoa,
to begin
the
with.
great protector.
That's exactly right, Michael. Whereas with your roommates, it's like, you fucking suck, man. You know, you couldn't say that to your girlfriend. You just can't.
I know.
It's just not right. And nor can you fart in the kitchen. That's the most disgusting thing I've ever heard. Or in the living room. Do you have to do that in here? Or especially in the bedroom? Unless you've known each other for 20 years. And even then, it's a no-no. No? I mean, that's the thing with women. A place for everything and everything in its place. The bathroom is for farting. The kitchen is for eating. And the television is for watching, you know, the TV room is for watching television. The sewing room is where I put all my junk, including the sewing machine, which I'll never use. And you can't go in there because it's the sewing room and it's for sewing. It's like, put bookcases in the kitchen, even though it's the biggest room in the house? No, that's a no-no, you know, with a girlfriend. But I'm having problems with my roommate because he is, in fact, kind of like a son and a pain in the ass, too. I mean, a teenage son. I don't need this shit, at least not for the next 15 years. And I don't need to argue because I said so, because I'm the tenant and you are subletting from me, so I set the rent. That's why you have to pay the rent, hopefully 3 days before it's actually due, so I can deposit it in the bank, so I don't write a bounce check to pay the rent because of your irresponsibility. But you can't say that to your girlfriend.
You sound like that guy Newt now.
I know, exactly.
Put your hat on straight, pull up your pants, and get a job, damn it!
It's like, but I'm only 5 years old, sir. It's like, these people, the Republicans, they proceed from a position of privilege, and they presume to tell the less fortunate what to do. Whereas the Democrats simply proceed from a position of privilege and presume to tell the more fortunate what to do. That's all the difference in the world. Ah, yes, well, this is a great way to end 500 appearances at the Middle East.
How about the Pope? What's up with the Pope these days?
I don't know, but I think they're preparing for his successor because now they're marketing a line called Pope Light.
Pope Light?
Slimmer than the fat pontiffs Catholics worship. You got your own Pope now, baby. You've come a long, long way. Well, I think they're going to go for an Italian guy next time. The Polish thing, it was a good experiment, but it broke up like, 1900 years of continuity. How many popes have there been? At least 70, probably 100.
Well, one might say that it was a move towards the end of the...
Armageddon. Gog and Magog.
Well, the succession of events there, that was one of the first steps towards Eastern European, you know what I mean, that thing.
Yeah, right,
What do they call
that thing. The fall of the Berlin Wall. There was somebody on Jeopardy last night who didn't know that the Berlin Wall fell in 1989. They're not making them any brighter these days, that's for sure.
Well, see, it didn't exactly fall.
Right, it just got knocked down. Not quite the same thing as falling.
Dismantled.
Dismantled.
More correct word.
Oh, yes, if we wanted to be precise and perfectly correct. Well, I guess now it's time to start talking about the idiocy of rock and roll clubs. How can anybody hope to accomplish anything whatsoever which is like cognitive and verbal in a rock and roll club? The whole purpose of rock and roll is to bludgeon your sensibilities into a state of stupefaction. In retrospect, having a comedy show in a rock and roll club was probably not the most inspired idea. But I started out with high hopes. I was very ideologically optimistic and what do they call that when you're like...
Stupid.
Well, that too. When you're young, idealistic. I was thinking, why must there be this great gulf, this great divide between comedians on the one hand and musicians on the other? Wouldn't it be nice if they could get together and you could have comedy and music shows and music and comedy shows? Of course, it's like mixing oil and water. It's like putting...
It's especially hard when you have an overbearing, self-centered, oddly costumed gentleman on stage who won't get off.
Well, I'd be perfectly willing to get off if there were plenty of other people to take my place, but since there aren't, I guess I just got to do it all myself.
Oh, right now?
Michael, I'm trying to save the world here.
Yeah, it's not working.
Albert Schweitzer,
Well,
get a
remember when
fucking
we saw those
stage
rock shows and it was time for the band to play but they had to wait for you to shut up?
Oh,
Years ago.
the
Not
poor...
now, I'm not talking contemporary events here.
Well, we've got 3 good songs and 15 shitty ones, and yet he's eating up our stage time.
That's exactly it.
Well, you think they would like let me talk for 20 minutes, do their 3 good songs, and then get the hell out? Wrong. Of course not. Well, it doesn't matter now. That's why I stopped doing the rock and roll shows, because the two don't mix. It's like putting Custer as the head of the Bureau of Indian Affairs. I mean, it's inimical. Comedy is inimical to music. Remember this. I mean, you can mix them.
How do you spell that word?
I-N-I-M-I-C-A-L, of course. I was in a spelling bee.
I might get a dictionary for Christmas. I'll look that up again.
Inimical. Well, it means basically totally opposed. I did word wealth in high school. That's how I know all these $3 words. I'm going to get to the main portion of the show very soon. I'm going to wrap up my comments now. Working at the Middle East has been swell. There's no health care, but at least there's free parking.
I show up occasionally.
Yeah?
I'm here now, right?
They said there's no health care. What did you think I
Oh,
said?
I thought I said there's no help here.
Oh, no.
I thought too.
Enunciate, you fool!
Okay, I'll shout with a bunch of rocks in my mouth at the ocean, and it'll get me up to my fighting trim in the enunciation. It's because my throat is getting dry because I drank coffee instead of orange juice.
You need dental work. You got too many spaces between your teeth.
Oh yeah?
Yeah.
Well, it's funny because I wrote a song about that.
Oh, why don't you sing it for us now?
Okay. I'd like to live forever. I want the girls to think I'm clever. So let us sing this all together. I can do what I want to do. I can do what I want to do. I can do what I want to do because I'm living in an alcoholic psychosis.
Yeah.
I'm living in an alcoholic psychosis.
Keep going.
I punch my girlfriends in their faces. I'm lacking in the social graces. Between my teeth are great big spaces. I can do what I want to do.
Did you write that?
I can do what I want to do because I'm living in an alcoholic psychosis. When the big boats get in the water, there's going to be a great big slaughter. If you want to fuck with me, don't bother because I'm living in an alcoholic psychosis. I'm living in an alcoholic psychosis. I'm living in an alcoholic psychosis.
Gee, that song was stolen by somebody.
No, I gave it to Jeffrey Gagnon of the Well Babies. He wrote the tune, and I wrote the lyrics. Although,
I actually like that.
I know, we've written quite a few other songs too. We wrote The Evening Train Don't Pass Through Town No More, and there was one called The Customer Is Always Right. And he just came out with a song called Be Kind, which is going to be on all the charts, and for which I also wrote the lyrics. But I'm not going to sing those.
You think he's gonna come back and pay you the $30 he owes you?
He doesn't owe me any money.
He owes me $30.
Oh, he owes you $30? Oh, that's nothing. You should amortize it over 5 years. Isn't not having him
Been
around?
about 5 years.
Well, isn't not having him around to harass you like worth $30? Isn't it?
Yes, kind of is. It kind of is.
Well, anyway, I like working at the Middle East. There's no health care, but there's free parking, and that sort of leads me to my final point, which is, why should we have universal health care? I think what would be better is health care for cars. Because, you know, people put off going to the doctor and the dentist because their cars break down. But if we had governmental health care for cars, then that would get rid of unscrupulous people who repair your car, and it would, like, you know, if Clinton said that, he would get every single Southerner to vote for him instead of the 9% who planned to do so in 1996. Health care for cars. And if Clinton doesn't do it, I'll make it part of the platform of my new...
Tailgate rejuvenation.
That's right. My new plaid shirt party will have that as its principal plank. Health care for cars, nationalized salad bars. Snappy, you know, goes down easy. So...
Nancy, how you doing? Here's an audience member.
Okay, how you doing? You look swell. That's one of the permissible things to say to people you don't know. You look swell. You ever have people just like walk up to you and say, hey, I like that sweater. What is their motive for doing this? And here's another thing. Why don't they make airplanes out of the same stuff they make black boxes out of? Because in every airplane crash, the black box is still there, but the airplane is like crumpled up to shit. Why don't they make the black box out of aluminum and make the airplane out of the black box stuff? That's what I want to know. Anyway, this ends this segment of Comedy on the Edge, and there will be more, so stay tuned.
How's that play tape? Still.
Just go. It's a go. Hey, who's this fella with the dark glasses? Who's that man with the goatee?
Just watch it.
Give him a beer. Hell, sell him a beer. I'm generous. Well, this is a milestone, an epoch. Yes, we're commemorating the 20 billionth anniversary of the Big Bang. And here's the Big Bang now, a little static to give me some accompaniment there. Yes, you know, back in the old days, they don't make Big Bangs like they used to. You know what I'm saying? I mean, time was, you could buy a slave for $1,000. Now it costs $30,000. And
you know, you don't even have any control over him after he leaves work for the day. I'll just tell you, the old days was the good days. You know, cholera, influenza, sure, but I mean, balance that off with paternalistic corporations and, you know, semi-feudalism in a 20th century mode. That's right, feudalism with rocket sleds. That's what we have now, and it's really wonderful, and I love it. And, you know, whoa, woo. It sounds like a dog wanting to be let out, you know, in the morning when you wake up. It's like, he scratches on your door. Well, a funny thing really did happen to me on the way over here, honest to God. Well, not exactly on the way over here, but going down to Providence last night. What should happen, but as I was tooling along in the high-speed lane, but that the hood to my car should fly up, smashing the windshield, and strangely enough, my thoughts at the moment were, oh well, guess I won't have time to go downtown and get gas at the Merit station. So, you know, I had to pull over, get a greasy rope. Ropes are always greasy. The rope you have in your trunk, it's always going to be a greasy rope. You're never going to be a really nice rope, you know, so that the people don't point and stare. Well, the windshield's smashed, but the rope's pretty nice. Like the rope, you know. I can really do things with that rope. You know, I'm getting an awful lot of hissing from this monitor here. I guess it's a sort of prelude to the hissing from the crowd, which will shortly ensue. Yeah, what are you, a bunch of snakes? Listen here. A snake sheds his skin once every 7 years. Too bad you don't.
That's hissing now?
Well, it's still hissing, and
How does it last?
well, just about the same. I mean, you know, a hiss is just a hiss. A smile is just a smile. Oh, that's much better. That's more like it.
Worse?
No, this is worse. And you know what? I don't really
This is
need.
better?
This is better. I don't need monitors because I know what I
You
sound
know,
like.
Francis, but you know, I have to make this thing work.
Oh, I get you. Yeah. In other words, reggae musicians and their 500 guests are more important than me and my 6
Go to
guests.
your pal's Green Magnet School later this evening.
Oh, great. Well, I'm going to give you some of you aren't going to be here for that, so I'm going to give you a brief excerpt of what that show is going to sound like. I want the bitch. Give me the bitch. I want the bitch. Give me the bitch. Okay?
My earplugs at home.
Yeah, it's too bad because, you know, they would have come in handy right about now. Green Magnet School. Yeah, I came up with them. Actually, they came up with me, see. You
We
know,
all worked together years ago.
we did indeed. One of the first shows they did here was at the open mic, which is now coming to its ignominious terminus. Hey, I like that. Ignominious terminus. Say that in a prison next time you're in the drunk tank. Watch out. Get that butt plug out, because, man, they're going to say, well, what do we got here? A live one. Yeah, you know, because really, the way you talk to people, it makes all the difference in the world. I used to do the Kirkland Cafe, but one time I used the word metastasizing, so instead of cancerous, and so they decided I was a highbrow and didn't have any use for me after that.
That's not the first time you've been accused of that.
A highbrow? What's wrong with being a highbrow, huh? Okay, so my knuckles don't scrape the ground, so sue me. What do you want from me anyway? Oh, thinks he's...
Especially over there, they're pretty close to Harvard. You think they'd be used to it?
I know, reading a book. Thinks he's better than everybody else. Can't read Dick and Jane like everybody else. Has to read a book. What book is this? Well, this book doesn't even have pictures. You know, he doesn't even move his lips when he reads. You know, moving your lips when you read was a phenomenon right up until about the 19th century. People used to constantly move their lips when they read. In fact, Caesar was the first person not to move his lips when he read. That is Julius Caesar. I hate to confuse him with Caesar Augustus. Gee, I was hoping I would milk more comedic gold out of the hood flying up. But what can you say? What can you say about a windshield that is irreparably shattered? Not just one little hairline crack, you know, like the kind you get when a rock hits your windshield. No, oh, I remember what I was thinking when it flew up. It was like pretty, like a spider web, you know. Oh, guess I should put the blinkers on since I'm doing 85 in the high speed lane. And, you know, it's New Year's Eve traffic, and and I'll bet you the guy who I passed when this happened was thinking, serves him right. You know, just once I'd like to see this happen to somebody else. It's happened to me twice already. I'd like to see this happen. It'd be interesting, you know, you're tooling along, you look over the high-speed lane, whoa! You know, it's like, whoa, hey, all right, this is better than the circus. Yeah, all right. And if you have your kids in the car, it's better still, you know. Gee, Mom, the museum is fun. Dun, dun, dun.
the copper top tops them all. Ah, yes. Well, it's an example of the old dictum, for the want of a nail, a shoe was lost. For the loss of a shoe, a horse was lost. For the loss of a horse, a kingdom was lost. My kingdom for a horse. Hey, thanks. I dig that. Save the owners on the electricity, the 15 cents worth of electricity per hour that it takes to light this stage. I love these lights too, It's sort of like, this is sort of lighting they had circa 1920 in the cabarets in Germany, Come to, and so, the thing is, the whole thing started when I left the oil cap off the car after I changed the oil. And the reason I didn't open the hood to check whether the oil cap was on, because the latch to the hood was defective. And because the latch to the hood was defective, the car caught on fire, the insulation burned, the hood warped, had to be strapped down, and then all this led to everything else. Just because I didn't put the oil cap back on, it probably cost me $800. So keep that in mind. Oil cap equals $800.
Oh, is that when your car caught on fire?
Yeah, that was the day my car caught fire.
Wasn't that yesterday?
Gather round, children. Back before we had electric cars and cars run on helium and nuclear power, we had gasoline and diesel engines. And one day my car caught on fire. Well, maybe then the hood got dented, and yeah, before too long. Too bad I didn't have Bucky Dent in the car with me. It would have been strangely, eerily appropriate. Hold on just 1 minute. I'd like to read you from this list. It'll only take about 15 minutes. No, our guests for today, oh, by the way, my name is Francis DiMenno, and our guests for today, the lovely Marguerite, my fiancée, is here, and Donna and Jeffrey Wine, and our two comedic guests, and the man in the black sunglasses with the baseball cap. Well, at least the baseball cap isn't on backwards, and your shirt is tucked in, and that's a very nice jacket, and it's not either red or blue, so we're not going to have some semi-automatic action later on. So that's cool. I like that. And you have really nice teeth. I can't pretend that I can see them from here, but they're all there. There's no prominent spaces between them. And I think you probably have pretty good, healthy gum tone, too. Take care of your teeth. It's very important. Because, the first thing they look at after they look at your shoes is your teeth. And then they look at your arrest record. Oh, they're coming for me. Our guests for today are Al Wigder and Phil Berliner. And now I'd like to introduce our first guest, Mr. Al Wigder.
Last day would be my luck. There is hits coming out here. I thought you were lying. Well, the first thing I'd like to say is I'm not a redhead, I'm melanin impaired, okay? Take kind of offense to that. My nickname's Blackie. It's not Red or Rusty, Carrot Top or Howdy Doody, Ronald McDonald or Danny Partridge, and it is certainly not Ralph fucking Mouth, okay? Okay, it's Blackie. Yeah, when I was 6, kids said I looked like Opie. Opie, you remember from, the Andy Griffith Show? We had a black and white TV. I thought they meant my ears stuck out. I slept with elastic bands on my head for 2 months after that, and I still have the creases. My role models were Huck Finn and Lucy, so all I got for my 9th birthday was a straw hat, a corncob pipe, and blue eyeshadow. Ooh, I'm killing them tonight, folks. Then a few years ago, people said that I looked like Elliot on 30-something. Yeah, there's nothing like looking like an immature, lecherous, freeloading backstabber to attract a sensitive woman. I didn't get laid for 3 seasons. First, there was that one sweet sweet. Most people think I look like Woody Allen. Now, I wouldn't mind being Woody, not for the fame or the fortune, for the 22-year-old Korean girl. Yeah, I think I know how Woody got his nickname, all right. And you don't hear much about Woody and me fighting anymore. I think he finally realized she's going to be his mother-in-law. Oh, yeah. So I used to live with my girlfriend, but apparently she didn't watch 30-something, so I was okay. Never forget waking up that first morning to those 3 romantic words. Who are you? Yeah, Euglena was a southern girl from a broken family. Yeah, her parents were separated at birth. Yeah. What else is I went down to meet her kin at the holidays once, and we all lined up for a family portrait, and the trailer tipped over. But she dumped me, left me for another man, yeah, her brother. It was a wonderful thing. Yeah, but that wasn't the worst part of it, believe me. She suffered from PMS, pre-manslaughter syndrome. Once a month, she wanted to kill me. She told me that a few shots helped her feel better. So she gave me a 10-second head start. Then she opened fire. You know, men suffer from PMS. Petty macho shit. Guys, testosterone. And there's weird manifestations because it's not really like a period. It's more of a comma. Although we usually act like a colon. What are you gonna do? Got to go to a Jewish wedding a little while ago, and I don't know if you know this, but at the end of the ceremony, the groom breaks a glass wrapped in a towel, signifying the last time he's going to get to go to drinking with the guys again. But what's really wrapped in a towel is a light bulb, more appropriately signifying the last idea he'll ever have. Yeah. So I was the best man, which essentially means just make sure the groom gets to the ceremony. And it's not always easy. I had to trick my friend because I'm not saying he was nervous, but he decided that before he would leave for the ceremony, he had to learn to play the piano. Well, I tricked him. I convinced him that the funeral march was the wedding procession. Unfortunately, the band didn't show up, and he was in charge of the music. And I don't get invited over there for dinner too often now. Nope. What else do I want to say about that? I went camping. I wanted to get in touch with nature. I wanted to, drink beer in the woods. I wanted to smoke cigars around a campfire. I wanted to be like a bear and shit in the woods and rub my ass on a tree because that's roughing it. Okay, I was having a bad coma and I got thrown out of the house. What can I say? I couldn't go over to my friend's because his wife won't even let me sleep on the sidewalk. So I went camping, and I like to fish. So I get to go fishing because my girlfriend believes in that old adage that give a man a fish and he'll eat for a day. Teach a man how to fish, and you'll get rid of him on the weekends. So I went fishing, and I'm out there for a few hours, and well, nature called, and I had to pee. So I found a little spot in the woods, and I'm, relieving myself, and I farted. A frog answered. Couldn't believe it, but we dated until she found out what an asshole she'd been talking to. So thanks very much. My name's Alan Wigder. Don't want to eat up any more time than I was allotted. So back to Francis.
The traditional comedian's handshake, signifying a sort of brotherhood of camaraderie and just plain backbiting, backstabbing envy that exists among comedians in general. The longer we shake hands, the more I am secure in the fact that I will not be stabbed in the back later on. Yes, it's that bodily contact that's all so important in the comedy world. Because, of course, you are constrained by society and its dictates from actually reaching out and literally touching your audience. And so you have to do it in the way that I am cynically manipulating you now, by using a soft tone of voice more appropriate for addressing a puppy or an extremely small infant. And in that way, I massage your ego and at the same time insult you without your knowledge. Well, actually, our next guest, and perhaps the final Comedy on the Edge guest, at least until we move it across the street, which could be months or never.
You really are going to do that?
Well, I'm going to try, boss. And boss spelled backwards is double S-O-B. So
Just keep that in mind. And back in Pittsburgh, pal used to mean personal ass liquor, yeah. So you gotta be careful when you call people these things.
Okay, Chief.
You wanna get up here and say a word?
No.
Just one word. Money. No? Listen, you're gonna buy all my possessions from me?
Yeah.
All right, then you're my friend.
All his possessions?
For now.
All of them?
Well, we'll get him for pennies on the dollars. How could he turn that down?
Who wants that much junk?
No, you know, Mike, I'm really in the market for 500, tons of crap. But,
Yep, 500 pounds.
You have to run
So.
a very big U-Haul for this.
Are you moving across
Hey.
the street because you don't have enough seating capacity here?
Well, actually, the seating capacity is more excellent across the street. It's a more intimate venue, and you might say
Can't
it's
get more intimate than this, Francis.
a little more on team than this environment, which of course is geared towards rock and roll. Not that I have anything against rock and roll, mind you. Not that I have anything against 3 chords and, people with tattoos that say BAC .40 and blood alcohol content. See, all tattoos say BAC .40 because you always have a blood alcohol content of .40 when you get a tattoo, or nearly always, unless you're Roseanne Barr. Then you get Tom Arnold tattooed on your ass, but you have the money to change it to My New Bodyguard when the opportunity arises. Well, then our next guest, Mr. Phil Berliner, is now going to address us. Yes, let's give him a big hand.
Don't call me a motherfucker. Mom and I only had oral sex. Thank you.
very nice.
Short and to the point, Mr. Phil Berliner.
And great pronunciation, too.
Oh yeah, I'll say.
From Phil.
Yeah. Okay. I will. Yes. Well, let's see. Can I do a Phil Berliner set here, just off the top of my head? No, I can't. See, because Phil is one of a kind. He is, and he's been one of our most consistent people, and of course, consistency is the hobgoblin of small minds, as Emerson so succinctly put it. But nonetheless, it is a praiseworthy. Here's John Kerry and Nita Sembrowicz. John, from an old and very distinguished British family, and Nita Sembrowicz, from an old and very distinguished Polish family. England and Poland. Hey, yeah, that's how World War II started, isn't it? Well, we feel sorry for the Poles, so if the Germans start to push them around, let's declare war on them. Okay, that was a brilliant idea. If it weren't for the Poles resolutely and perhaps stubbornly and beyond all reason defending the Danzig corridor, World War II would have started years later, and the Germans might have had atomic capacity by then. So the Poles really saved the world. Not the first time that a Polish individual has been in a position of eminence, I might add. Well, I guess this is as good time as any to draw the curtain on Comedy on the Edge. Of course, there's still about 25 minutes left on the tape, so I'll think of something to put on it. But please stay in your seats and don't move, because we're going to be bringing our special featured guest. And thanks for coming out.
Hero!
I'm very pleased to tell you that next I'd like you to put your hands together to welcome Amy with telling us one of her little short stories that we love. Okay. Here you go. Don't she? Do you have to?
Well, at intermission, I told Rhodas I had 2 things to read, and one was raunchy and the other wasn't, and they said I should read the raunchy one. Don't get too excited. Max is a Brooklyn lager drinker like myself. We met canvassing together for an environmental group along with 100 other college students who couldn't get better summer jobs because of the recession. We knocked on doors and conned people into donating money, using keen psychological tricks like tapping into upper middle class guilt. Sometimes we would even alter our first names to coincide with a different potential donor's ethnicity. Whenever I saw a mezuzah on a door, I would say my name was Aviva and ask them to give in multiples of pi. Each afternoon, we would sit and listen to a rap about the particular issues of the day and the best way to get money. Mostly, they made us sit through it to convince us that the work we were doing was not inherently immoral, that their overhead really was a lot lower than Greenpeace's. They didn't convince us, but we stayed because you got 40% of what you collected, which for me was about $3.50 a week. I was so bored during these sessions that I would look around the room at all the hot young men and fantasize about them. I was into fantasizing then because I had just read The Secret Garden by Nancy Friday, which is a book all about women's sexual fantasies. Max was one hot young man who had caught my eye early on. I knew he'd gone to high school with my friend Ronnie Fiducia, and I kept wanting to get up the nerve to flirt with him. One day, we were both selected to train new canvassers into how to squeeze money from the rich and channel it into the earth. We had to go to a training session to learn how to train, and I was so bored for this meeting that I just licked the dirt off my Doc Martens. I could see that Max was watching me do this, and I wondered if it grossed him out. This was the summer that the Interview magazine with the photo spread on Drew Barrymore came out. It was the 10-year anniversary of E.T., and Drew was just out of rehab. The cover picture was her naked with her boyfriend and their dog. She had a tattoo on her leg of a crucifix. The article was about her remarkable triumph over all those sorry addictions and her life with her beautiful girlfriends. The story was just a flimsy excuse for them showing lots of nude pictures of Drew with her friends and her dog. The photos were incredibly hot. I brought the magazine in work and everyone wanted to look at the pictures. That night, I was on my way out when Max asked me if I was going to dinner. I said I couldn't afford it, and we decided to sit on a stoop and have a beer together. We went to a Korean grocery and he bought a Brooklyn lager. I didn't because I was afraid of getting carded. We brought the lager back to the stoop and sat there in that July humidity at night that makes New York City summers halfway bearable. He told me how he went to Friends Seminary and then Cornell, but had dropped out of Cornell and was working in construction. His first week at Cornell, he enrolled in a sculpture class and fell immediately and passionately in love with his sculpting partner. Her name was Elizabeth, of course, the perfect sculptress name. The two of them would just sit and sculpt each other for hours because it was a 3-hour class, and that was how they began to fall in love. I told Max that I met my boyfriend in philosophy class and thought when I saw him come into class late for the first time that he looked like he'd be a good fuck, and how I was right. But as soon as he got over his 8-month fear of my vagina's fangs, he did let me fuck him. And that we were in love and still going out. The thing about conversations like that, where you talk about your past relationships and sex, is that such conversations are inherently erotic. No one's really talking about the relationship for any reason other than coming on to the person they're talking to. Because to talk about how you have sex can come pretty close to having sex. And when you know you can't have sex with a person like I did, talking about it can be almost as much fun, because it's not wrong. After about an hour of this type of talk, we started talking openly about the fact that we wanted each other, and me about the fact that I had a boyfriend who I already cheated on once and couldn't cheat on again. We started imagining the perfect relationship where both of you could fuck anyone else, because in the perfect relationship, fidelity isn't the important thing. You each just want the other's joy. I told him how much fun masturbating was and how often I had been doing it, and how just a few nights before I had masturbated to the Interview magazine pictures. I told him that I used Aqualube, which I bought at a sex shop in DC with my boyfriend, and how just a dab of it could last the whole night, like that deodorant Magnum, where you can skip a day and that's okay. Max invited me home, and I told him with delight that I couldn't fool around with him, but that when I went home, I would masturbate to his image and come probably harder than I would have had I fooled around with him and without the guilt. But aroused by my pledge, and after another hour of painfully seductive talk, I hailed a cab, went home, and went into my room. It was late by this time, and my parents were asleep. I got into bed, and I imagined this wonderful scenario where Max and I were fucking, and my boyfriend came home and caught us. He was so angry that he wanted to kill us both. But instead of killing us, he decided to get his anger out by mounting Max, who had already mounted me, and fucking him up the butt. Max liked it, and his pleasure translated into more pleasure for me, which was already heightened by the fact that I was being fucked by 2 men at once. After a while, my boyfriend dismounted, and so did Max. My boyfriend fucked me while Max masturbated, then they switched, and all the while I was having the time of my life.
Oh, yes!
Come on now. The next day, I went into work, and during the rap, I passed Max a note that said I did the thing I said I would do when I told you the thing I would do. He smiled. All day, while I was knocking on doors, all I could do was think about Max. Every time I remembered part of our conversation or how I had felt when he smiled after he read my note, I would get wet. This wouldn't have been so bad, except that when people opened their doors to talk to me, their dogs would go right up to my crotch and sniff it. That night was party night, which meant that everyone would go to a bar down the block after work. I got there late because it took me so long to sign out, and right away I looked for Max. He was sitting with a girl who he told me he fooled around with. She was from Brooklyn like me and tough, but definitely a little dumb. I sat down with them across from Max. She was sitting next to him. I was jealous. I rubbed my legs against his under the table and stroked his knees with my hand. I did this for a long time, and he was smiling like a silly boy so that the whole table probably knew. But then he wised up and shut up and started touching me back. Finally, it was getting too hot. I knew something had to start. So the three of us got up and went to the back of the bar. There was an empty coat rack there, and I stood on it because I felt so nervous. I grabbed onto the bar where the coats would be hanging and kind of hung from it and leaned on it like a monkey. I said, someone's going to fool around with Max tonight, and looked meaningfully at the Bensonhurst dits. Max said, it doesn't have to be only one person. I said, shut up, Max, let's make a decision here. We hemmed and hawed because each of us was so incredulous that we were openly discussing which girl was going to hook up. Bensonhurst kept saying I could, and I kept saying she could, and Max kept saying we both could. Finally, I said, look, I have a boyfriend, see you guys later. I went to sit down at a table with my friend Lola. After 5 minutes, Max came up to me and told me that Bensonhurst's boyfriend had just arrived. I couldn't believe it. I felt like I couldn't pass up the opportunity to hook up with the guy I'd been creaming about the whole day, but I had already decided not to cheat on my boyfriend, and I was proud of myself for having made that decision. Max asked me to come outside with him for a second, and I said okay. We sat down on the ground outside the bar, and he tried to kiss me, but I turned my face away and said I couldn't believe he tried to kiss me without asking first. Bensonhurst and her hot but dope-head boyfriend came out of the bar and asked us if we wanted to smoke up with them. We said no. By this time it was late, and I was in a moral quandary. I couldn't decide whether my conscience or my hormones should win out. So I procrastinated. I asked Max to walk me to the Brooklyn Bridge where I could hail a cab for cheaper. He agreed, and when we got there it was unbearable. I couldn't decide what I wanted to do. I didn't want him to leave, but I didn't think I wanted to cheat on my boyfriend either. We sat on a bench in the park next to each other, and I told Max to make a move. He refused, saying that it was my decision because I was the one who would be cheating on someone. That seemed logical. I stalled. We were talking about nothing, and that spiritual connection that had been there on the first night was almost gone, because once you start thinking about sex, the emotions dissolve. We had almost nothing to say, because all we were thinking about was whether or not we were going to hook up. Max started singing, and that made things better. He sang, I'm not talking about your pigtails, I'm talking about your sex appeal. He said it was a Paul Simon song. I told him I liked Paul Simon too. He told me that he thought one of the most moving lines ever written was in Graceland, she comes back to tell me she's gone, as if I didn't know that, as if I didn't know my own bed, as if I never noticed the way she brushed her hair from her forehead. I asked him if he thought Paul Simon wrote that about Carrie Fisher, and he said he wasn't sure. I loved that. It made me think he had a heart. I started thinking how my boyfriend wasn't that crazy about Paul Simon, and how maybe Sam and I had more in common on a spiritual level than I had originally thought. I was dying though, because it was at that point where a decision had to be made, and I was the one who had to make it. I wanted to kiss him, but I knew that as Charles Bukowski had written, kissing is more intimate than fucking. I decided the only way to please my conscience and my flying hormones was to do something innocuous, yet internally arousing. So, I touched his face. I glided my fingers over his cheeks and neck and back. He liked the back part because he had a fucked up back. He had injured it when he biked across the country, and his chiropractor told him to carry oil around all day and put it on. So each day he showed up to work with a little plastic bag of Rizola. I kept touching his face and back and neck and body, and he didn't really say much. I thought he might be a little disappointed, because from his perspective, his opportunities had dwindled from the chance of a menage a trois with 2 ballistic girls to sitting on a city hall bench with a weirdo who would only touch his face. It was erotic as anything for me, though, because I made the touch into the kiss, the sex, everything I couldn't do. Finally, I called a cab and said goodnight. The next decision was whether or not to tell my boyfriend. I debated about that for weeks and finally decided not to, but in the spur of the moment did. We were on his bed in Baltimore right after dinner, and I told him everything, and he pushed me off the bed. Instead of calling him an abuser, though, I picked up my oxblood Doc Martin and bashed it against my head, saying, "You stupid, horrible thing," over and over again, and wailing. Just as I was in the middle of this, his mom called us down for dinner, and it was the most awkward and miserable dinner I ever had. After dinner, we went out for a ride and tried to work it out, but he never forgave me and eventually broke up with me because he couldn't trust me. That was when I realized that whatever you do in love on the side, you don't tell. Eventually, Max and I hooked up. It was the spring of the next year after my boyfriend and I broke up. We met for drinks and then took a cab back to his place and did it on the floor to the tune of Staying Alive. It was pretty disappointing. That was when I realized that long-term expectations never match reality. Thanks.
Are we ready for the final act of the evening? We're so thankful that you came. We're really pleased. And we hope that you'll come next time. It's the first Saturday of every month. And now, please put your hands together for the wrong hero.
I would like to perform for your pleasure a pantomime. As the beloved entertainer Red Skelton once said,
I now hold the power of the cosmic cube. Captain America, you will be destroyed!
oh, I'm sorry, actually that was the Red Skull who said that, not Red Skeleton. Anyway, I'd like to perform a pantomime, and to set it up, I should tell you what the titles of the pantomimes are. I'm going to perform one right after the other. The first one is called Dance of the Broken Office Vending Machine. And during it, the boss will come up, so you'll know what's going on. And the second one is called The Clandestine Xerox Copies on Office Equipment March. And again, the boss will come up during the middle of it. So here they are. Mr. Manny Solo. Mr. Manny Solo.
cocktail and join us. We're going to hang around and mill about for a while. And please pop in some of that fabulous music here. Thank you very much.
One more hand for Jerry Black.
And now, a message from the wrong hero.
I figured as long as I am an insanely intelligent alien from outer space, I would give you some advice, which I will call Visiting Earth, some do's and don'ts. It is wrong to refer to the Earth government as your sugar uncle when visiting Earth. On Earth, a gift of flowers is always appreciated. However, black denotes death. Pink is sexually suspect. Yellow means contempt. Purple implies tragedy. Red is cursed. And white implies that your host is suffering from a spell cast by gypsies and that his child has been kidnapped by elves and replaced with a changeling. So, rather than give flowers, it is better to give a head of broccoli or a hand grenade. And if you have special regard for your host, the hand grenade will still have the pin in it when you present it to them. Now, protocol for tipping waitresses and waiters. Waiters prefer to add a 100% tip to your bill before you've paid it, but they will gladly accept any loose change that you happen to have on you at the time that you pay your bill. Now, on Earth, you should avoid talking about politics or religion, or for that matter, any subject which fails to make your host feel superior to you. Now, on Earth, it is customary to give gifts with both hands. However, most people will accept your gifts even if you throw them at their heads. Now, when visiting Earth people, you will probably be offered a large cup full of a murky beverage. If it has big chunks floating in it, then you'd better hope that it is coffee and not water, and drink it regardless of how nauseating it looks to you. Rest assured it will always be tepid and weak, no matter what it is, or what country you happen to be visiting. Now, one gift is always welcomed, but two are better, and most people, although they would never admit it, would prefer 50 or 60 gifts, preferably in small denomination bills with non-consecutive serial numbers. Now, on Earth, it is impolite to sneeze and then say, "This is not intended as a gift, but merely as a small memento of my visit." On Earth, to motion a waiter for a check in a restaurant, make a writing gesture, or better yet, make a walking gesture as though you are heading out the door without paying the check in order to gain his immediate attention. Never say, "Wake up and smell the flowers" when communicating with the deceased ancestors of Earthmen. And never refer to Earth events as the squabbling of mites on a plum. Earthmen and women will appreciate your interest in their sports, art, foodstuffs, and natural wonders. Admiring their personality, however, gains their undying respect, and sucking up to them shamelessly earns their undying love. At least until the next charismatic and incredibly intelligent alien comes along to flatter them even more. Earthmen are very proud of their hydroelectric dams, rocket ships, and computers, even though, by our standards, these devices are laughably primitive, and even our smallest children have mastered integral calculus. Earthmen will give you their business card. I, the wrong hero, have a card specially prepared for the occasion when Earthmen feel the need to give you their card. I don't want to know you or have anything to do with you, but I'm giving you this card